Welcome again to another segment of the Grassy Knoll. We made it to September 22nd, 2006. Summer officially is gone. Never leaves here, it seems. All right, we have with us today Adam Gorightly. He's been on quite a bit. He's here to talk about a new work that he's dealing with. And a lot of good stuff today that ties in properly with what we've done the whole week. And Adam, thanks once again for coming back. We're glad to have you and hope everything's okay. How about you?
Always great being here, Viz.
All right. I appreciate that. Now, you tell us what you're working on. It's got something to do with somebody we've mentioned and has been mentioned on other shows as well. So will you lay that out for us, what's going on?
Yes, James Shelby Downard. I've been piecing together a book on Downard for the last year and a half here, and I still have a long ways to go. I've been juggling a number of other projects, and also just released by Feral House as a book on Downard. Just came out in the last few weeks, so it's a timely subject.
And that work, is that something of an autobiography by Downard?
Yes, it is an autobiography entitled, The Carnivals of Life and Death, My Profane Youth, 1913 through 1935.
When did he pass?
Downard passed, if Downard actually existed, he passed in 1998. And the reason I say if he actually existed, there's some debate out there in some sectors that Downard is some kind of literary creation of Michael Hoffman and William Grimstead and Adam Parfrey. I don't necessarily believe those rumors, but that speculation is out there.
Well, that's really, again, it's interesting. Don't know if it can be documented whether or not it's true. So you're saying that there is some thought that Downard is actually a personification, if you will,
right,
of a couple of alter egos. Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you this, and you don't have to answer it, but one thing I want to know from you, if you recall reading King Kill 33, do you see anybody in there? Anybody's writing style, perhaps?
Well, it's Michael Anthony Hoffman was the co-author of that work, and his style definitely comes through. I think what happened, I don't believe that Downard was a literary creation, that he was a mentor to Michael Anthony Hoffman and these other writers, but looking at some of Downard's actual manuscripts, he wasn't the most polished writer, so I think these other folks who were his prodigies took some of his work and smoothed it out for folks to make it more readable.
One last question about that work, and that's probably what I'm going to get. Do you know Parfrey at all?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, what was his connection necessarily with Downard, or was it just because he was heavily involved with the Feral House publishing company?
Parfrey is really one of the main key promoters of Downard's work. He brought out King Kill 33, and he put out a couple of anthologies, pretty provocative, called Apocalypse Culture. And the first one came out in the late 80s, and that indeed featured King Kill 33. Then he published subsequent works of Downard, and then actually went out and met the man in the mid-90s or so, out there in where he lived at the time in Kentucky, I believe. And so Downard's had an ongoing interest in, Parfrey's had an ongoing interest in Downard over the years, and apparently there's more material. As I said, this last book deals with the period of 1913 through 35, so maybe there'll be more material showing up here in years to come. I really don't know how much more there is, but that's a possibility. And my take on Downard is my project's a little bit different. There will be some biographical material in there as well, but I'm also kind of taking some of his theories and running with them myself and looking into them a little bit deeper and how they apply to the current scene.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we wanted to talk about, perhaps, when you say theories that he had, he threw out a lot of information, and I would have to say that like 99% of it dealt with some kind of symbology, as it can, I guess, instill itself in the names of people and places and such.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you something, because also the King Killed 33 is about the assassination of Kennedy. Do you have a fiction writer that's like a favorite among others? Yourself?
I would put, off the top of my head, Philip K. Dick.
Okay. Well, mine's a little more mainline, but it's somebody who is very well acquainted with the state in which you live. Is that a hint at all?
Probably Orwell you're talking about.
No, I've actually gotten a little mainstream, but I came across something that I'm just going to share, and we're just going to use this kind of like as a prologue, and off we'll go with Downard. Actually, Steinbeck I like the best, because to me he wrote, I refer back, I think we talked once about a guy that I had lived over in Vermont who was an editor with Viking and New Kerouac, and he's the one that said to me, don't say in 2 syllables what you can say in 1. And I find that Steinbeck is very clean like that. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't get over wordy. But here's what he wrote in The Winter of Our Discontent. He said, it must be that there are years unlike other years, as different in climate and direction and mood as one day can be from another. The year of 1960 was a year of change, a year when secret fears come into the open, when discontent stops being dormant and changes gradually to anger. Presidential nominations would be coming up soon, and in the air the discontent was changing to anger, and the excitement anger brings. And it wasn't only this nation. The whole world stirred with restlessness and uneasiness as discontent moved to anger, and anger tried to find an outlet in action, any action, so long as it was violent. I just thought that was kind of interesting. He would say that for what would eventually happen.
Yeah, that falls in line with Downard's writings as well.
And that's why I thought it was kind of apropos. I pulled it out the other day. Lady Biz and I went out. We had kind of a business thing going last night, and we went to the famous Catholic library for which I once worked. And I'm up there getting Atlas Shrugged for certain reasons, so pray for me, you know what I mean? To go through that thing. And I grabbed that one as well, because there's a couple of really good quotes in there.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just brought that home. That's a little bit more for, shall we say, relaxation, considering all that both of us do and the topics in which we get involved.
Right.
Now, King Killed 33. First of all, explain that title if you would. In 3 words or less.
Let's see. I can't do it in 3 words or less, but...
But we are talking about, would it be the Masonic ritual of killing the king?
The premise of King Kill 33 was that a free Masonic conspiracy went to this incredible length to make JFK's assassination correspond to this ancient fertility rite, which is known as the killing of the divine king that, goes back to ancient Druidic times. And so the authors claimed that this hidden Masonic agenda has been common knowledge to members of the media over the years who have chosen to suppress this information from the masses. And in this regard, Michael Hoffman, he speaks from personal experience. He spent a lot of times as a reporter for a major newspaper chain, Knight Ridder. I have a quote here a couple quotes I pulled out that kind of sums up what it was about, and this is from James Shelby Downard, and quote, the assassination of JFK was a performance of the occult ritual called the killing of the king, designed as a mass trauma, mind control assault against the national body politic of the United States. According to Hoffman and Downard, this killing of the king, or the killing of the divine king ritual's ultimate design was slow decay and eventual ruin of the American spirit. Then in the aftermath of Kennedy's assassination, if you follow this line of reasoning, an acceleration of cultural events brought about, I guess you could say, loosening of morals to American culture, from the breakthrough of the Beatles and the English invasion, which led to open rebellion in the streets and the murders ad nauseum of political leaders and activists. And some of this is tied in with the plots presumably hatched in Tavistock Institute labs, which you've gotten into in the past, that sex, drugs, and rock and roll were unleashed on an unwitting populace who flung themselves into this, these good vibrations. Suck it to me, baby.
Okay. I just wanted you to understand that I'm not mowing the lawn while I'm doing the interview. The machinery out there tells you the landscapers are in fact here. So I don't want that to be distracting for you. But go ahead, go on with your thought, by all means, Adam.
So I pulled out another downward quote. The ultimate purpose of the assassination was not political or economic, but sorcerous. For control of the dreaming mind is the underlying motive in this entire scenario, end quote. So, this is me speaking again. So, JFK's in-your-face, over-the-top assassination really displayed to the nation in a subliminal, yet not so subtle fashion that a president slash king can, be disposed of crudely, like a dog in the street, in broad daylight. And if this is the case, then none of us are safe.
Let me go back to something. Okay, I want to ask you something with regard to what you had said along this. Should I just hold off now, or is this a good time to do it?
Oh, no, go for it.
Somebody sent me an email. It was Lady O from Manitoba. And she had just seen a documentary, which I really should get around to watching, the bit about they sold their souls for rock and roll. Have you heard about this?
No.
Okay. So that just happened this morning. And then just listening to what you said, and I'm thinking back, because I'm that generation. Now, I'm going to state this to you. It may seem like a foolish question, but, I've never really posed it before, so if it is, it's still honest. And now I'm wondering, now that we know about Tavistock and Stanford Research Institute and places that, are just dedicated to mind manipulation of the masses, could it be that we were given the drugs, we were given the rock and roll and the rebellion, and we were given pretty much a Pandora's box to open for anything we wanted? And as we saw, we had Kent State, we had before that all the protests. So where I'm going with this, Adam, I'm wondering now what my generation is. What we really are, what we stood for, or what we're going to be remembered for, and did we accomplish something for, the psychological op people, and are we going to see some kind of fruits of that, or whatever you want to call it, manifestation of it soon? So in other words, where we thought we were doing something different, and this was all our idea, it really might not have been, huh?
Yeah, I've turned this over in my mind many, many, many times. I don't have any type of conclusive answer for you. But, the intelligence agencies, in particular the ones screwing around with MK Ultra, were there at the very beginning of the counterculture revolution, feeding drugs into it, monitoring it, and manipulating it. Now, perhaps in some cases, those of your generations broke free of the programming. I hope that's the case, but it really seemed like at some point the anti-war movement and the political activists were a bit derailed by, bringing in all these various drugs such as LSD that kind of took them away from their political activism and made them draw more inward toward personal experiences. Not to say those personal experiences, mystical experiences, didn't have value, but that's something that just seemed to happen.
Well, even the idea of getting LSD out there as a street drug, and where it came from, which were military labs, that already has got to make you go,
Yeah.
as far as it being a setup. And then, of course, the rebellion and such. And I guess what I'm looking around at now is that I don't think, I'll be frank with you, I don't think my generation have been very good parents. I don't think they ever stopped being kids or indulging themselves. And this is generalism, so I understand.
Yeah.
And I look at their little demon seed, and I'm like, whoa, so... Was something done during the 50s and 60s to create a disruption in social order to get to the chaos, and we know where that leads eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So it may not have been such a, I guess, a prophetic thing to say, but until you just put the words together now, I'm wondering if the whole joke was on us. I mean, I keep on expanding, the joke is on us to include more and more, because we all refer back to the Matrix, and now I'm saying, gee, it may even be bigger than I thought it was.
Well, and all those counterculture figures were and are, still big heroes of mine, starting at, with Kerouac, on through Ken Kesey and the Timothy Learys and figures of that ilk, but you also have to consider that they were all dupes and pawns, perhaps witting pawns in some instances.
It makes you look back at Kesey to a certain extent also, for being able, of course he had the unauthorized acid, and that's what fueled that entire trip across country in the bus that was titled Further, and is, I guess, is the focus of the book, The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test by Tom Wolfe.
Yeah.
But now you got to start to wonder about, Kesey as well. Did he know? And he certainly was an intelligent individual, and of course, where was he? He was at Stanford, where there's SRI. So now things start to take a little bit of a different look about that.
So was Allen Ginsberg, part of the
sure.
Kerouac's beat movement.
Well, you got Ginsberg and you got Cassidy.
Grateful Dead?
Right. Once known as the Warlocks.
Yeah, Garcia was part of that whole scene at Stanford.
Well, you have as Ginsberg and Cassidy being the linchpins where the beats morph into the hippies. And would you agree with that? I don't want to make that already decided.
Catch who was the linchpin?
I would say Ginsberg and Neil Cassidy.
You're right, yeah. And of course, Cassidy went on to be the bus driver for Ken Kesey. Amazing.
Yep. There's a lot of connections there. So at least thanks for brooking my thinking on my feet, which is always a frightening experience. Getting back to King Kill 33 now. I don't know which direction you want to go, but can I suggest that Kennedy had to be killed in a certain fashion, in a certain place? Mm-hmm. Now, run with that if you would.
That's where we get into what's called mystical toponymy.
And translated means? And,
it's a central theme of this whole Downwardian cosmology. Mm-hmm. And mystical toponymy relates to latitude and longitude lines that connect to significant places linked to the Kennedy assassination, such as Dealey Plaza, which falls on the 33rd degree. I have another quote here handy, quoting Downer and Hoffman, mystical toponymy incorporates word wizardry, which is known as automatology, and the modern science of symbolism, end quote. The authors in their work use the example of Mason Road, which runs across Texas as being linked to the 33-degree latitude. And so, it could be argued that if you look hard enough for a connection to something, you'll eventually find one.
Right.
Another example of this word wizardry or onomatology that I dug out from their work has to do with a fake ruby. A fake ruby in the gemstone business is known as a jack ruby, also referred to as a bloodstone. So to conceal the facts behind the JFK assassination from the public, it was by design that Jacob Rubinstein changed his name to Jack Ruby, the figurative spiller of blood. So these Freemasonic death rituals, once again according to the Downardian paradigm, are conducted on the 33rd degree. The 33rd degree, of course, being the highest degree of Freemasonry. Interestingly enough, I have some friends who are doing some research along these lines, and they discovered that Disneyland is on the 33rd degree latitude. I wouldn't laugh too much, Viz. Also at Disneyland, have you heard of Club 33?
Oh, no. You I think, once wrote me in an email just kicking things around about some of the strange things that take place at Disneyland. Wasn't it you, Adam?
Probably so.
Oh, yeah, about...
We've discussed this before, I think.
Yeah, I can't remember. You've been on so many times across the years, and I'm never sure if it's something we write about, talk off mic, or do a show on. So, yeah, now it comes back to me about Disneyland and its whole structure over there is a little bit interesting, shall we say. And they've got, oh my goodness, a Club 33?
Right, and it's the only, it's a private club on Disneyland, and the only place there that actually serves alcohol, and seems to be, linked to Freemasonry and this whole 33rd degree concept. I wrote an article also years ago that dealt with the many deaths that have occurred on the grounds of Disneyland that have been covered up over the years, part of an ongoing conspiracy of sorts.
Well, first of all, Walt was an interesting guy, and he also was a Freemason, wasn't he?
So I've heard.
Okay.
I can't confirm that totally, but...
And is that article that you wrote about life and death in Disneyland, is that on your website?
No, I don't think it's on the web anywhere. Let me think about that. It might have appeared on Wing TV's page at one time, but it's in my book, The Beast of Adam Gorightly.
All right, and while we're there, let's talk about the website. Give us the website and the books that you have out there and everything else that's up for offer.
AdamGorightly.com, and you can buy all my books directly there, and you can buy signed copies as well. And there's 4 books. The book on Manson, Shadow over Santa Susana, the book on Kerry Thornley, Prankster and the Conspiracy, then the latest, the anthology, The Beast of Adam Gorightly, as well as the Wing TV chat book, Death Cults. And all this stuff's available through Amazon as well.
Okay, so folks, good.
Good plug.
That's the way the game's played, is it? That's why we like having you on. That's why you come on. No, but going back to what you were saying, and I'm going to just try to coach and see if you can get that, if you can put that article up on your website sometime. A lot of us have missed that, and I wouldn't like to think that it's gone forever.
Let me do some research. It might be somewhere posted, actually.
Now, you said for me not to laugh at Disneyland and such, and we know that the 33rd degree parallel out by Disneyland's about almost as far as you can go before you get wet. Now, if you take the 33 parallel the other way, about as far as you can go before you get wet, put you to what city?
It'll take you to a few interesting places, and it's kind of where I was going.
Okay. Well, the eastern terminus, obviously, is Charleston, South Carolina. And who set up shop in Charleston? Albert Pike.
Oh, that's interesting to know.
Okay,
Albert. To my notes.
Albert Pike set up what was the headquarters of Freemasonry in Charleston, and and if you look in, I guess, the first few pages of Morals and Dogma, I will state such. But yeah, it was interesting that he chose a city on the 33rd degree parallel to create what would be necessarily, for at least the Scottish Rite, a Western Hemisphere headquarters.
Coincidence?
All right, so let's work with what we have in between both coasts, and I'll let you start the trip there.
Oh, we're taking the 33rd degree parallel?
Oh, we'll go anywhere you want, but I didn't know if that's where you wanted to hit some of the...
I think we'll get there in a second. I wanted to address the central thesis in Downard's conspiracy theories, and that it's basically that the Masonic conspiracy is attempting to carry out what he calls the three great works of alchemy. And the first one is the creation and destruction of primordial matter. The second is the killing of the king, who is Kennedy, and the third is what is known as the making manifest of all that is unseen, which will be the final act. So according to Downer, the first of these three great works, which was, the creation and destruction of primordial matter, this was achieved on July 16th, 1945 in Alamogordo, New Mexico at the Trinity nuclear detonation site, which just so happens to be on, you guessed it, boys and girls?
Would that be...
Third degree.
Right. Isn't it interesting, too, the use of the word Trinity, which also pops up in Dealey Plaza, I believe, as well?
Mm-hmm. You have the triple overpass there, for instance.
Yeah, and the
You have the three tramps.
Yeah, the three tramps, right.
Three is a significant number in Freemasonry as well.
And the three streets in Dealey Plaza, Elm, Main, and Commerce, form a trident-like exit out of the city. I would believe that's to the west side.
They go through that triple underpass.
Yeah, where 35 goes over the top. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, so here we got Alamogordo, New Mexico, where they, which is famous for nuclear tests and other things, right?
Right. Yeah.
And what was the name of it? The Trinity what?
The Trinity nuclear detonation.
Okay. Okay.
Of course, this led to what we did in Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I could veer off in a couple different directions here, but the King Kill, as I discovered, draws upon a larger work which surfaced in the mid-'70s and was produced by Downard and his colleague William Grimstead. It was called Sirius Rising, after the dog star Sirius, and where they presented the theory that the Illuminati were preparing Earth in an occult manner for extraterrestrial contact, and part of this magical preparation consisted of such acts as the founding of Caltech there in Southern California, where Jack Parsons he attended, in which Jet Propulsion Laboratories grew out of, and was located on the 33rd degree. Then, of course, Parsons played a major part in the rocket technology. Then they go on to talk about the firing of the moon rockets, which happened at Cape Kennedy on the 33rd degree, and that the Illuminati arranged it so the first man on the moon was a 33rd degree Mason.
And who wore his apron in one of the photos?
I wasn't aware of that, but apparently Neil Armstrong was a 33rd degree Mason. It should also be noted that the alleged, supposed, whatever you want to call it, saucer crash in Roswell happened on the 33rd degree parallel.
I also think the town of Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, is on the 33.
You're right, yeah. There's a lot of it they go into in the book King Kill 33.
I just want to tell everybody listening, if you wish, by all means, you got a comment, send it along. If you're going to use IM services, you've got Yahoo, which is Biz 1400. You've got MSN. It's Vyzygoth, and you can send stuff, and people are doing it via Hotmail, and that would be Vyzygoth@hotmail.com. So I've got a statement for you, Adam, if you got a second. A listener writes, What happened in the 60s happened also in a somewhat cruder fashion in the 20s during Prohibition. And that's another thing. We all forget about a lot of the decadence that was taking place in the United States at that time, and also Germany, which is captured in that movie Cabaret. It says so many brilliant talents were destroyed drinking the bad booze of the time. It says not necessarily conspiracy, but a parallel. States Club 33 plays a prominent part in Ruff's Sewer, Gas, and Electric. Are you familiar with that book?
Repeat that again. What book?
Yeah. Let me turn around a second. I'll wait for the mic. I didn't bring it in with me.
What's the name of the book?
The book's name is Sewer. I think it's Sewer, Gas, and Electric. All right.
Not familiar.
And it's by an author by the name of Ruff. Now, what's interesting about this one? Now, Andy from Utica is telling us that Club 33 plays a big part in this book. This is another one of these books before 2001 and such that kind of made, shall we say, guesses that came true. And also, the original cover had on it the Twin Towers being impacted. Now, the book I just got, that the cover's been changed.
Wow.
Now, also it says, he asked me, are you sure you want to continue drinking Rolling Rock beer? How more blatant can they get? And let me say this. I pulled out a bottle, as you can hear, and on the back, get this, Adam, it says, from the glass-lined tanks of old Latrobe, we tender this premium beer for your enjoyment as a tribute to your good taste. It comes from the mountain spring to you, and inexplicably, right below to you, in quotation marks, is the number. You want to take a wild guess? You're right, Andy. I saw that. I was like, woo, I have to.
I think I've heard that before.
So what is up with that? We got to find out who he is and what he was doing, the founder. Also, it's written, and this is the last sentence, the Kennedy thing rings a bell. They threw my father out of the Masonic Lodge for marrying a Catholic. That's interesting. Some would say, as Dr. I think it's Walter Veith, that it was the Freemasons. Let's see, how would this go? I know what it was. That the Jesuits created Freemasonry and got all the Protestants in there. But actually, when supposedly there was this bad blood between the Catholic Church and the Masons,
right?
Which may have been once upon a time, but certainly it didn't seem to be too much of a problem in time to come. But the fact that he would say that the Jesuits would create that Masonic society and load it with Protestants. Mm-hmm. So, okay. That's from Andy up in Utica, and so go ahead. Adam, where you want to go again?
Let's back up. We talked about the three great works of alchemy. So we had the creation and destruction of primordial matter, which we discussed from the Trinity detonations. That was the first act. The second was the killing of the king, and the third has yet to happen, which is the making manifest of all that is unseen, the final act, which some think might be nuclear in nature. So bringing all of this about is what's known as the revelation of the method, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
You're gonna have that one. I'm gonna tell you, have to refresh my memory.
Okay, I'll quote Hoffman once again from his book "Secret Societies and Psychological Warfare," where he describes the revelation of the method. Quote, "The revelation of the method has as its chief component a clown-like grinning mockery of the victims as a show of power and macabre arrogance. When this is performed in a veiled manner accompanied by certain occult sign and symbolical words and elicits no meaningful response of opposition or resistance from the targets, it is one of the most efficacious techniques of psychological warfare and mind rape." End quote, such as the Kennedy assassination. Now a second quote here from Hoffman. He goes on, quote, "By means of occult public rituals disguised as random terrorism and serial murder, we are controlled and processed. The language of symbolism is used to speak to our subconscious, to reveal to us the exact opposite of what is propounded by the system in its rational discourse." End quote.
Okay.
So in this regard, I guess it could be perceived that the revelation of the method is unfolding at a rapid pace these days, triggered by the Twin Towers tragedy, and designed to transform the planet into a totalitarian concentration camp, and result of the New World Order's agenda. So,
what was the phrase they used for that third happening?
The third happening is the making manifest of all that is unseen.
Okay. So
the final act, whatever that may be.
Yeah, all right. So that would mean they would finally reveal all, which means that pretty much the game is up to the little people.
Right.
What's interesting also too, let's say this also. Michael's still selling King Kill 33 on his site, is he not?
Yes.
All right. So folks, if you want to read this is not a long read, but I'll tell you what, it is just absolutely jam-packed and loaded with things that will make you definitely stop and give pause to wonder about. I have to say, it may be a bad word for it, Adam, but it was extremely entertaining. And if you even can believe that half of what he stated there was not coincidence, it's still pretty much spine-tingling.
Yeah. Some of it, at first look, like a lot of Downard's work, comes across as pretty outlandish and unbelievable, but on second reading, at second glance, it appears to be something. There appears to be something eerily compelling about these theories. They seem to crawl into your skin and insinuate themselves in your psyche. Well, there's something to it.
Well, here's one. Maybe it was, I don't know, maybe it was coincidence, but even Kennedy's name in Gaelic, is it? It translates either to helmet head or wounded head.
Oh, yeah, Kennedy, right.
Yeah. Kennedych, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Now, that might be a coincidence, but still, no, that's eerie in itself.
Yeah.
And another thing, when Downard is likening, I guess, the killing of Kennedy to with sort of a Macbeth motif.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting about that also is obviously Macbeth was in Scotland, and of course we talk about Scottish Rite Freemasonry. But one of the things we always talk about that's very Orwellian and also Jesuitical and more or less kind of a code for the Illuminati or whatever is the using contradictory terms that really do make sense. Like, as you know, in 1984 and yesterday we spoke about war is peace and slavery is freedom.
Mm-hmm.
But we've forgotten what the witches say right in the beginning of Macbeth. Fair is foul and foul is fair. And he says, Downard says, this is reminiscent of Hermetic art or alchemy, as well as the individuation or shaping of an integrated personality in the psychology of Jung, in which the archetype of unity, the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Hatav of the Jews, and the mingling of all with all is manifested. Well, that's a mouthful and a half, but still in all, again, looking back, and here's some more clues in a sense with fair is foul and foul is fair. So,
indeed.
Yeah, and that's just one of the likenings he has between the Macbeth story and the story, obviously, of the assassination of President Kennedy. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I've ever asked you this. I'm kind of interested. You know that there's so much out there on how it happened. You get the Gemstone file saying one thing. You've got Madeline Brown writing about something else. Have you ever been able, to your own satisfaction, been able to come down to a particular scenario?
No.
In a word, yeah.
Well, I read, looked in it so deeply over the years. The deeper I got into it, the more confused I became, because it seems like there were so many red herrings thrown in by different, perhaps people spreading disinformation to, muddy the waters or cover their own paths, that that was part of the cover-up probably a good portion of a lot of the books that came out about the Kennedy assassination were disinformation. I think ultimately it was a cabal of many different players from the intelligence community, and perhaps the players in the intelligence community were rogue agents in a lot of cases. The mafia was definitely tied up in the thing. There was a lot of maybe even LBJ, but there was a lot of people with at least justifications in their mind why they needed to take Kennedy out.
You know, as I look back, and we'll get back to the core of Downard's work, I think back now that perhaps one of the true litmus tests is what Garrison was going after, because I doubt that they would have tried to smear him and demonize him if he was really barking up the wrong tree. Another thing coming upon what was said in Macbeth, again, that has, I think, Masonic overtones, again, is when it says, when the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won, for so foul and fair a day. Again, same contradictions. It sounds like nonsense, but really is at the core of a lot of what we're talking about today, isn't it?
Yeah, that quote, it's interesting. For many years, Downard carried around a photo, the famous photo aboard Air Force One when LBJ's getting sworn in.
Right.
Jackie Kennedy's at his side. And there was another individual there, and I forget who it was, somebody in LBJ's cabinet who's winking his eye.
You know, that's made a resurgence. Has anybody sent it to you of the last couple of weeks?
Not recently, no.
I got sent from somebody out in Virginia. It would be hard to say in a court of law that was a true wink. You know how people sometimes blink their eyes at bad times. But what does seem a little interesting is that this is the photo either before or after the photo you saw in the papers, where he's so solemn and of course she's grieving. This picture's got this guy, and certainly LBJ has turned to look at him.
Right.
And I can only say, and again it's tough to hang on, but if you look at the way that his skin is wrinkled, it is not necessarily someone who's frowning.
Yeah.
So, folks, if you can see that photo, if it's out there, go take a look. I'll say it's interesting to say the least.
I think it used to be on the Steam Shovel Press site.
Okay.
Might still be up on their good site to check out. Great parapolitical magazine, actually, Steam Shovel Press.
Now, this whole idea, too, of Kennedy being assassinated, and it would have to also be accompanied by a headshot, a head wound. This also, doesn't it kind of harken back or allude to the whole story of Osiris, Isis, and Horus, doesn't it?
It sounds like you're more knowledgeable about that than I am. Fill me in.
Oh, all right, okay. Osiris dies of a head wound, dealt him by, I believe it's his brother Typhon. Typhon chops his body up into 14 parts and scatters him so he can't ever be put back together again. Isis, Osiris's wife, sister, however you want to run it, finds 13 of the parts, right, and then can't find, obviously, his penis, so that's how she creates a phallus that we now know as an obelisk. Again, here we have a head wound that kills the king, and actually, you do have a missing part, don't you, with Kennedy? And I would believe that would be, where did the brain go? So, I don't know if you're familiar that thing disappeared, but it's no longer to be found.
The ring?
The brain.
Oh, the brain. I thought you said the ring. Yeah, yes, I am quite aware of that. The brain did turn up missing from, where was it, the National Archives?
Yeah, it was, yeah, exactly. You
bring up Osiris and the Egyptian myths, and once again, according to some researchers, scholars, that's the genesis of Freemasonry. Came out of those Egyptian mystery schools.
Yeah, I mean, William Cooper spoke a lot to that, and most of the people that come on are pretty much supporting that there's a continuum of Mystery Babylon religion through Egyptian sun god worship and into Freemasonry, because after all, it was, probably amongst others, but it was the Knights Templar who went down there and came back with the geometry which allowed, obviously, European architects and such to be able to do much better than they had prior. The Flying Buttress Cathedrals, I guess, is one of the best examples of the building that was possible after the bringing back of geometry. But also with that came the other, shall we say, esoteric knowledge that, I guess, from which Freemasonry sprang. Are you a Mason?
As a joke, I put that on one of my books that I was a 33rd degree Mason, but actually that was a misprint. I'm actually a 23rd degree Discordian in the Discordian Society. And my name in the Discordian Society is the Wrong Reverend Houdini Kundalini of the Church of Unwavering Indifference.
Well, I tell you what, your website have to start selling shirts, because if you do it, they will come. Are you familiar with Reverend Bob?
There's a lot of Reverend Bobs out there. Bob Dobbs?
Yeah, Bob Dobbs. That's Harry's favorite. Yeah, I think he's been ordained in that sect.
Yeah, they worship the floating head of Arnold Palmer. We're getting way...
I know. The other thing that's interesting also, though, his brain winds up missing, but of course what does appear is the magic bullet, which I won't go too far with the fact that it does look a little obelisk-like, but...
Oh, yeah.
You know...
Man, I can use a lot of this from my book, which we've been bringing up here today.
Well, you know what's interesting as well is Arnold Spector, who sold that steaming pile of dung to the public.
He's some kind of specter, all right.
Well, that's another interesting name, and what was it called? Automata, was that?
I have it here
yeah, I know, I'm looking
for me, but basically it's word wizardry, and there's that name for it, onomatology.
I got it. Oh, yeah, here it is. And actually, this comes from the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry. This is a quote.
Yeah.
It says, "It is certain that onomatology, or the science of names, forms a very interesting part of the investigations of the higher Masonry, and it is only in this way that any connection can be created between the two sciences." Interesting. But it's out of their own Encyclopedia of Freemasonry by Albert Mackey.
Yeah.
And just as another sidebar, you think this is really interesting. Should there be this falling out, supposedly, between Freemasonry and the Catholic Church, who it's rumored created the Knights of Columbus, who became the Knights of Columbus to be their own little secret society. But Harry and I found great little kid glee in the fact that we could go to the reference section in that Catholic library, and sitting there, unbeknownst to any of the directors and such, were two beautiful leather-bound volumes of Mackey's Encyclopedia of Freemasonry. I mean, if the pictures on the walls could talk, boy, but I'll tell you.
I don't know that much about, the battle between Freemasonry and Catholicism, but according to some sources, at some point during this battle, Catholicism was infiltrated by Freemasonry, and now is a tool of Freemasonry. And that the war is just or the battle conflict is just a ruse at this point.
Well, that I can believe. I think a lot of the divisions are there for our consumption, but it's also as a distraction. I got an email from a good sister here who runs Cephas Ministry website, and I'm going to, get involved with somebody who did a video, but a statement was made, and she passed the statement along to me about the how there are some similar trappings between Nazism, let's say, and Islam. And that kind of makes sense, too, because you have characters like Sabetendorf and some others who studied down there and came back to Germany, and I guess you could say created this little Islamo-fascist thing. But I also wrote back and I said, you better throw the Vatican in there, too, because they have had their way with both of these groups. And I think that makes more sense as well, because obviously you know that the Vatican spirited out Nazis in Operation Paperclip, and also, as Veith has documented, has had a lot of influence, both, I would say, positive and negatively, with Islam, and especially in its early days.
Yeah.
So, and one of the interesting things I might add is that another name I believe they have for Mary is Fatima, and what should Muhammad's daughter's name be? Okay. So, just probably another coincidence.
Yeah.
All right, now going back to Downard's work, and by the way, with this book that's coming out of his, and do you know, are there any other manuscripts laying around that might ever come up? Has Michael ever said anything about that, or?
Michael Hoffman?
Yeah.
I think anything that's going to come out, Parfrey is going to be playing a big part of, and they're all kind of involved with each other. Hoffman and Grimstead, who's still around,
really,
with Parfrey, but I don't know how much is actually there. One thing I've been trying to get my hands on is this audio tape they did called Sirius Rising, which I mentioned earlier, which, was circulating back in the mid-'70s, and I talked to William Grimstead about it, and he said, oh, well, I got the tapes somewhere in my garage, and they'd have to be transferred and all this type of stuff, so if those ever resurface, they'd certainly be a curiosity, and I've been collecting stuff over the years, so I have a few odds and ends by Downer that haven't been published before, so there's still some material out there. I don't know if, like I said, this biography coming out covers the years of 1913 through 35, and I don't know if there's going to be a follow-up to it that covers his later years.
Yeah. Now, the work that you're doing, are we looking at something that's going to be a couple of hundred pages?
Hard to say. Probably in that range, yeah.
And did you have a tentative title for it?
The tentative title is Downard's Mystical War.
And the next question I was going to ask you, and probably one of the last I'll be able to as we come up on about 53 minutes after the hour, you use that term war, and of course the book that's coming out by Downard talks about the carnivals of life and death. Now, taking both those interesting visuals, if you will, did he go through some kind of hell or what?
Yeah, let me paint the picture. Probably should have done this at the beginning. His saga, I guess you could call it, first took a turn for the weird in the 30s when he was recruited into the FBI.
Well, that'll do it to anybody. I'm example.
Which he referred to as the Bureau of Easy Virtue, and anyway, this association took the form of what he called a mystical charade, which led to a bunch of spooky adventures where he ended up being kidnapped and duped and hoodwinked by members of Freemasonry, and he claimed he became what is known as the Pharmakos, or a scapegoat of these early 20th century Freemasons, and this is what's chronicled in the new book. Anyway, at some point he broke free of this programming and started this battle against what he called these Masonic sorcerers. The key conspirators among them, he claimed, were Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and that at one time he was a guest of Roosevelt in the Oval Office, all part of this mysterious, mystical charade, seemingly designed as part of death rituals. Death rituals were used quite a bit, and Downard was led into these things, and Freemason rituals, Freemasons are into this whole death, rebirth stuff, the same kind of weird rituals that the Skull and Bones are into.
That's right.
And so throughout Downard's account, he was kidnapped and led into these various rituals, but he rebelled against Freemasonry, high-level Freemasons, and, they became his sworn enemies. So from these experiences, he gained an unique insight into the inner workings of the secret societies, which led to King Kill 33 and his other works.
What we didn't get to today, and we could go on forever, but I was going to try to refer to, I know it's a book, but I mean it's obviously not a very long one called Death Cults. Now, do you have it available yourself now on your own website? Because it once was up for sale with Wing TV.
As far as is it still for sale by Wing TV?
Well, let's put it this way: the copy that I purchased, or either that, or you gave to me a long time ago, has the Wing logo on the back.
It should still be available for Wing TV unless they've stopped that series or pulled mine. Yeah, it should. You can go to my website, the last I was aware of, and click on that, and it'll take you to the Wing TV site. And I do have some copies myself that I can sell, and I'll sign them.
Okay. That is Death Cult. There are also a number of other titles up there. You can access them by going to adamgorightly.com. Just go to the books, and you'll find a lot of his titles there. And you do have Death Cults, as I see that, up on your site, so you must also be a vendor of your own material, which isn't a bad idea.
Yeah.
You also have Shadow over Santa Susana, Prankster and Conspiracy. Death Cults is there, and what else are we missing? And also you have the Best of.
Yeah.
The Beast of.
That should cover it, and there's plenty of other things in the works, so stay tuned.
All right, listen, thanks for being with us again. We'll probably check in with you next month, if that's okay.
Great. Oh, yeah, anytime, Viz.
All right, thanks very much, Adam, and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks.